Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Ben, Christy, Alonzo, Nate Parker's The Birth of a Nation, one of the year's most talked about movies, finally hits theaters this weekend.
Yeah, so this is the story of Nat Turner's 1831 bloody rebellion, slave revolt in Virginia. The story starts basically 22 years earlier in 1809 when a young Nat Parker witnesses, as slave children would have, one indignity after another, including one involving his father. Story then propels forward 22 years, and we see Nat Turner become a preacher, a powerful preacher. We see him meet a woman he falls in love with, and then we see him sort of used as a preacher, used by slave owners to placate angry slaves who during a drought aren't being fed. And then we see a transformation occur with Nat Turner, leading to the revolt that everybody knows is coming.
You're a special boy, Nathaniel. Study hard here.
Your slaves sure do know how to behave.
Well, they God-fearing. One of them's a preacher.
People might pay good money to have them calm down a bit, especially by one of their own.
I lead you to Peter 2:18. Submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh.
Interesting what happens at Sundance with movies.
Yeah,
right?
It's a recognizable phenomenon at this point that sometimes people get really excited about a movie in Park City, and then maybe at sea level it's not quite what you heard.
Is it the altitude? Is it like a Stockholm syndrome thing? What is it?
Well, I think there's a pressure to find the next big thing, certainly, and yeah, I think the air is a little thin, maybe.
Yeah, next big thing. What is record, right? $17.5 million.
Yes, and I think Netflix actually wanted to pay more, but
Yeah, they did
I
want to pay more,
I think they were.
He wanted a theatrical. He wanted a theatrical release.
And it should have that for a lot of reasons.
No, absolutely.
One of which is it's beautiful.
Yeah, no. It's
Malachi, to use our friend Malachi earlier.
It is. Yeah, no, it's beautifully shot. I mean, I think in a lot of ways this is a really strong first feature. But that's a phrase that kind of comes with a built-in caveat of, like, there are things that first filmmakers do sometimes that they eventually learn not to do. That I think this movie, there are some sins it commits in terms of over-explaining or over-directing or
I'd say oversimplifying.
That too.
The fact that he's front and center for the vast majority of this film, but he's just like singularly virtuous, right? Even though the revolt that he leads to the death of many, many people, you see in no way whether that takes any kind of toll on him or he feels morally conflicted about that as a man of God. He views it as his mission and his purpose and his calling, but where is the depth or complexity? He's just a really good guy.
Well, to me, it's one of the things I liked about it, because I didn't think he was a good guy, because he had this sort of misguided religious messianic zeal, which influenced him in the wrong way.
But the film depicts him as one. The film depicts him as a singularly good guy, I think.
I don't think so.
No?
I didn't know, because he had this crazed messianic zeal. And I read that they eliminate the parts in the movie where, and I guess Parker said he eliminated them, but I didn't, because white women and children were killed too, and
that's left out.
And that is left out. Except in that there is a scene where they barge in, and then we see a hacksaw come down, and there's a woman in bed. I don't think there's any suggestion that woman gets out of that room.
True, but like children and babies, like that.
Children and babies
gets left out.
are left out. So to me, I thought, wow, like he's almost great, but he lost his way. There's 70% of and the idea of slaves revolting and killing their masters, I would have signed up. I would have. But the notion that you have been, because there's a moment there when he says we're misreading the scripture. For every line, a wonderful line in the movie, I thought, for every line of scripture that says that we should be subservient to our masters, there's a whole other thing that says, no, we shouldn't, and we should rise up and fight them. And I thought, yeah, exactly. There's the problem.
Back when I read the comments on this show, I remember there was I forget what movie we were talking about, but I pointed out that in this country, people use the Bible to justify slavery. And somebody got really mad about that in the comments. And it's like, nope, sorry, that's history. Look it up. It's a real thing. It's a real thing that happened. And this movie shows that, where, basically when Turner's slave owner, played by Armie Hammer, is having hard times. He makes money for the plantation by basically loaning out Nat Turner to other plantations, like you said, to sort of placate their starving slaves by reading these Bible passages and telling them how great heaven's going to be and how their rewards are not in this sort of thing.
And the way you get to heaven is by serving your master.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's a thing. That was a thing that they did with the Bible. Before they started using it on women and gay people and everybody else. So I mean, historically, there's a lot good here. This is a story that certainly needs to be told, and I'm glad that it exists. I love the fact that he has the stones to reappropriate the title "Birth of a Nation."
Yeah.
That's fucking brilliant. Like, not since Dan Savage changed the meaning of Santorum has somebody gone through and really fucked up Google that way. So I think that's great. I love all that. I think there are some really powerful moments here, but there's also just, you're right. It's too much about him and about him being this sort of cardboard saint and not a really complicated human being. There are two incidents of women being raped by white guys that apparently are not historically accurate, that they threw in as motivating factors, which I think in a way removes the agency of black women to foment their own revolutions, which they certainly have done over the course of the civil rights movement in this country. And it also brings us uncomfortably into all of the stuff that's going on with Nat Parker that shouldn't be relevant to this film,
Which I didn't think about I tried really hard not to think about it while I was watching it.
I didn't have any problem.
The difficulty of separating the artist from the art.
It's hard because I mean, in the credits, I mean, you could say it should be easy, and I was able to, but I mean, written by Nate Parker, story by Nate Parker, produced by Nate Parker, directed by Nate Parker.
Story by Nate Parker and the roommate.
And the roommate, right. So the roommate who was convicted and then had the conviction vacated.
Right.
I think mostly because she wouldn't come back and testify.
Or other witnesses wouldn't, yeah.
I thought there were parts of this, and it's this movie deserves much more than to merely be compared to other movies about slavery.
Sure.
But we're fairly fresh off 12 Years a Slave, and I thought this in many ways was better.
Really?
Yeah, I definitely did, because to me, 12 Years a Slave felt like, which I gave a good review to and which I liked a lot, but which I had an opportunity to watch again and just didn't, because 12 Years a Slave to me felt like terrible event, terrible event, terrible event, terrible event, and then a terrible event. This felt more like a story to me, and although that
because you get a revenge narrative and a big cathartic kind of
What got me what got me was the stuff in the first hour 20 was I thought a more effective way of conveying the indignities of slavery. There were moments to me that were as powerful as I think they can be. And one of them was one of the rape scenes. One of the rape scenes, did they cut the scene? Was the scene in it?
I didn't see it at Sundance, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious.
With Gabrielle Union, you mean?
Yes. No.
With the wife.
With the wife. That scene may have. They just go up to the trees. That may have had I thought maybe that scene had been.
Maybe you see it.
Okay. Another thing that bugs me here. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
sure,
the casting of Jackie Earle Haley as the one recurring bad guy, which, given that we're talking about the systematic nature of slavery and about the institution of it as a wide-ranging thing, to have this same bad guy pop up after decades just sort of felt like that he's just there to be killed in Act 3.
Yeah, that's
true. The lead bad guy.
Yes, that's true. You do know he's there just to be killed at the end. But I mean, it's only 22 years, and a slave overseer would have been overseeing the. But
he wasn't. But I don't know. It felt like a weird cinematic shorthand that, in a way, undercuts the sort of widespread nature of this. It makes it seem like this sort of localized phenomenon when actually it was a business and it was an industry and it was a trade and it was throughout the South.
So yeah, but I agree that it seemed like it was set up for that. And I have another issue that I didn't like, that I thought that he made many of the white slave owners and sort of those involved in the slave trade too disgusting, thereby making the villains easy to dismiss. Like it was better. Armie Hammer, that's a definition of what the problem was, is that otherwise good people participated in this too.
I think the Penelope Ann Miller character comes off as
Totally, she was great, and she's terrific in this. Really, really good. But I mean, the little characters, guys huddled around when they're at the auction, when they're like they were so ridiculous, so comical, like our 1940s propaganda Hitler films, like almost to the point of. Like, you don't have to take them seriously, they're caricatures.
Well, yeah, that was the argument that we had.
They lost some humanity, which I think makes you feel the monstrosity of the event more.
Overly simplified.
That was the argument that you and I had about The Help, whereas if you show everybody who is a racist in the 1960s as this terrible person, that allows the white audience now to go, oh, well, that wouldn't be me. I'd be one of the nice ones. And the idea in here is that, slavery was such an institution and so sort of societally accepted and ingrained in the economy of the South that, they weren't all like all the time,
Sometimes they bathed. Like here, they all got stringy hair. And
they become increasingly like ridiculously rednecky as he goes from house to house. I will say the Armie Hammer character, though, there are some vague semblances of complexity with him. Because as a child, he and Nat are friends.
Right.
And now his father has died. He's taken over the plantation, and he thinks he is the benevolent
good
tyrant.
guy, right.
He thinks he's doing the good thing for all these people. He's doing a good thing for Nat Turner, but he's drunk and despicable and like everybody else is. So.
But again, the one of the sexual assault scenes may not have been, or they may not have been historically accurate, but the notion that there were rampant sexual assaults.
Of course.
So to me, that scene got me, not because of what happened to the woman, horrible as that is, but I'm accustomed to seeing that horror, right? Not to minimize it, but in this case, like the notion of a husband having to stand by.
Right.
Wow.
Coleman
Again, so there were like 2 or 3 of those moments that really just sort of reached me, that I thought were done better than I've seen done before. Of particular, one involving reading and another involving there's a forced feeding scene.
No, that's pretty grim.
It's so brutal to watch. I mean, it's very powerful and intimately shot in those moments, and just flinch looking over your fingers.
I would argue that Steve McQueen is more of an artist than Nate Parker is, and he comes literally from the world of art. In fact, so I think that 12 Years a Slave is a much more skillfully made film. This one maybe is a little more of a button pusher and is more of an audience pleaser. Which is not in itself a bad thing.
That's me. I'm an audience member.
And I think there's a lot of good stuff here, but I think that the adulation that came out of Sundance is sort of like let's calm down.
Now it's tempered a bit. Now that's getting after the rest.
But you also don't know. Well, part of that's expectation, and part of that we don't know. We'll never know how much of the Nate Parker, other than the movie story, affected that.
I will say this: this movie never got me as upset and as committed to trying to make change in the world as 13th did.
Please see 13th.
Yeah, I haven't seen it else.
Ava DuVernay's
I saw
the documentary.
2 nights back to back, and
that movie I think packs much more of a punch. But this one's worth seeing, and obviously the Nat Turner story is one that's worth telling.
So what are your numbers then, Ben?
I think I gave you the wrong number.
You said 8.9.
It's an 8. 8.
Okay.
Which would just take us down 0.3.
Okay. So you're saying 8.
6.5. I think I think this is a promising first film. I want to see what Parker does next if he continues working as a director. But I think that there are some first film problems here.
I'm saying 5.8. I liked it a little less than you did, even. So what is it now?
6.8.
6.8, and
right?
It is at 81%. But it was like at 100, right? Coming out of Sundance, and it's dropping a little bit. So see both films this week.
Yes, if you can. They're
You mean Birth of a Nation
and 13th. Yeah, not the Griffith. You don't need to see that.
Bye.